This story happened when I was about 7 years old. My family always went to my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. She lived about 40 minutes away in a rural area with lots of farmland around her property. That year, I remember we arrived in the early afternoon, and there were already several cars parked in the driveway. My cousins, aunts, and uncles were all there. The adults were in the kitchen preparing food and talking while us kids were playing in the living room. After a while, I got bored playing inside, so I decided to go explore the backyard by myself. My grandmother had a really big yard that stretched back into some woods. I was walking around near the edge of the woods when I noticed something strange. There was a man standing between two trees, just watching the house. He was wearing dark clothes and had a beard. I thought maybe he was a neighbor or something, so I waved at him, but he didn't wave back. He just kept staring. I started to feel uncomfortable and decided to go back inside. When I got to the back door, I looked over my shoulder and saw that the man was now walking close to the house. I ran inside and told my dad about the man. He and my uncle went outside to check, but when they looked, the man was gone. They walked around the property for a bit, but never found anyone. Later that evening after dinner, I was playing upstairs with my cousins when I heard my grandmother scream. We all ran downstairs to see what happened. She was standing by the kitchen window, pointing outside. The same man I had seen earlier was now standing right outside the window, looking at my dad. Called the police immediately, and the man ran off into the woods when he heard my grandmother scream. The police arrived about 15 minutes later and searched the property, but they never found him. To this day, I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted, but it definitely made for a memorable Thanksgiving. I work at a large apartment store, and a few years ago, I had to work on Black Friday. We open at 5 in the morning, and I was scheduled to be there from opening until 2 in the afternoon. I knew it would be crazy, but I needed the hours and holiday pay. When I arrived at 4:30 that morning to prepare for opening, I could already see a line of people waiting outside in the cold. We had about 20 employees working that morning, which was way more than usual. I was assigned to work in the electronics department, which I knew would be one of the busiest areas in the store. When we opened the doors at 5, people rushed like a flood. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. Before, people were grabbing things off shelves, running through the aisles, and shoving each other to get to the best deals. I was trying to help customers find items and answer questions, but it was nearly impossible with how crowded it was. About 2 hours into my shift, I noticed a man acting suspiciously. He was wearing a large coat and kept looking around nervously. I watched him for a bit and saw him grab several expensive items and stuff them under his coat. I went to find my manager to report what I had seen, but by the time we got back to where the man had been, he was gone. We split up to try to find him in the store. I was walking down one of the main aisles when suddenly the man appeared from behind a display. He grabbed my arm and told me to keep my mouth shut. I pulled away from him and started to yell for help. Other employees and customers heard me and came running. The man let go of me and tried to run, but 2 male employees tackled him before he could get away. Security held him until the police arrived. They found over $2,000 worth of merchandise hidden under his coat and in a bag he was carrying. I had to give a statement to the police, and I was pretty shaken up after that. My manager gave me the rest of the day off, even though I had only worked half my shift. It was definitely the craziest Black Friday I ever worked, and I'm much more cautious now when I'm working during busy shopping days. When I was in college, I used to go home for Thanksgiving break one year. I remember I had just arrived home on Tuesday evening, and my mom asked me to go to the grocery store to pick up a few things we needed for Thanksgiving dinner. The store was only about 10 minutes away, and it was around 8 at night when I left. When I got to the store, it was pretty busy with other people doing last-minute Thanksgiving shopping. I grabbed a cart and started going through the aisles, getting everything on the list my mom had given me as I was in the canned goods aisle. I noticed a woman staring at me from the end of the aisle. She was middle-aged with long brown hair and was just standing there looking directly at me. I found it strange, but I just ignored her and continued shopping. A few minutes later, When I was in a completely different part of the store, I saw the same woman again. She was standing at the end of that aisle too, just staring at me. Now I was starting to get creeped out. I quickly grabbed the last few items I needed and headed to the checkout. There was a long line, so I had to wait about 10 minutes to check out the whole time. I kept looking around to see if I could spot the woman, but I didn't see her anywhere. I paid for my groceries and then walked out to my car in the parking lot. It was dark outside, and the parking lot wasn't very well lit. I had parked pretty far from the entrance because of how busy it was. As I was loading my groceries into the trunk, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw the same woman from inside the store, walking toward me. She was smiling, but in a really unsettling way. I quickly put the last bag in my trunk and closed it. Then I hurried to get into my car and lock the doors. The woman walked right up to my driver's side window and knocked on it. I didn't roll it down. I just started my car and began to back out. She stood there for a moment just watching me. Then she pulled out her phone and appeared to take a picture of my license plate. I drove away as fast as I could and kept checking my rearview mirror to make sure she wasn't following me. When I got home, I told my parents what happened, and my dad suggested we call the police to report it. I did, and they took down the information and said they would have extra patrols in that area. I never saw that woman again, but it definitely scared me, and now I'm always much more aware of my surroundings when I'm out shopping. Last year, my boyfriend and I decided to go Black Friday shopping together. We had eaten Thanksgiving dinner with our families earlier in the day and then met up around 9 at night to hit some of the stores that were opening early. We started at Target, which was absolutely packed with people everywhere. We were looking at electronics, and I found a tablet that was on sale for a really good price. I picked it up, and my boyfriend and I started walking toward the checkout lanes. The line was incredibly long, wrapping around half the store. As we were standing in line, this guy came up to us and started talking to us in a really friendly way at first. He was asking us what we bought and talking about Black Friday deals. He seemed normal enough, but then he started asking us more personal questions like where we lived and if we were going to any other stores. After this, I started to feel uncomfortable and tried to end the conversation, but he kept talking to us and standing really close. Finally, we made it to the front of the line and checked out. The guy watched us the whole time and then followed us out of the store into the parking lot. I whispered to my boyfriend that we should walk fast to the car. The guy called out to us asking us to wait, but we just kept walking. When we got in my boyfriend's car and got inside, we saw the guy standing about 50 feet away just watching us. My boyfriend started the car and we drove out of the parking lot. But as we were leaving, I looked in the side mirror and saw the guy running to a car. We turned onto Main Road and I kept checking behind us. After a few minutes, I saw the same car from the parking lot now following us. My boyfriend saw it too and started taking random turns to try to lose him. The car stayed behind us for several minutes and we were both getting really scared. My boyfriend pulled into a gas station that had a lot of lights, and people around the car that was following us drove past slowly and then kept going. We waited at the gas station for about 20 minutes before leaving, and we never saw that car again. We decided to just go home after that and skip the rest of our Black Friday shopping. Several years ago, when I was a teenager, my family hosted Thanksgiving at our house. We live in a pretty quiet suburban neighborhood and usually don't have any problems. That year, we had about 15 family members over for dinner. Everything was going great. We had a nice meal, watched some football, and were just hanging out and enjoying each other's company. Around 9 at night, most people were still at our house when suddenly all the lights went out. The power in the entire house just shut off completely. It was pitch black, and everyone was confused. My dad got up to check the breaker box, which was in the garage. He came back a minute later and said that someone had cut our power line from outside. We were all pretty freaked out by this, and then we heard a loud banging on the front door. My dad went to look out the window and saw a man standing there. He was wearing a ski mask and dark clothing. My dad immediately told everyone to go upstairs, and he called the police. My mom grabbed a flashlight, and we all went upstairs as quietly as we could. From upstairs, we could hear the man still banging on the front door. Then we heard him go around the back of the house and start trying the back door. As well, thankfully, all our doors were locked. The banging continued for what felt like forever, but was probably only about 5 minutes, then everything went silent. We stayed upstairs huddled together until we heard sirens approaching. The police arrived, and we saw their lights flashing outside. They searched around the property, but the man was gone. They found where our power line had been cut and said it looked intentional. They stayed at our house for a while and made sure we felt safe before leaving. We never found out who that man was or why he targeted our house, but it definitely ruined our Thanksgiving that year and made us all much more cautious about home security. I went Black Friday shopping by myself a few years ago. I had seen some good deals advertised for electronics and wanted to get a new laptop. I arrived at Best Buy around 6 in the morning, and there was already a pretty long line outside. I got in line and waited about 30 minutes before the doors opened. When they finally let us in, everyone rushed to the electronics section. I managed to grab one of the laptops I wanted and was really happy about it. I decided to look around at some other things before checking out. As I was browsing the TV section, I noticed a guy who seemed to be following me. Every time I moved to a different area, he would appear nearby a few minutes later. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence since the store was pretty crowded, but after the 4th or 5th time I knew something was wrong, I decided to just go check out and leave. I got in line, and the guy got in line about 3 people behind me. I kept glancing back at him, and every time I looked, he was staring directly at me. After I checked out, I walked quickly toward the exit. The guy had apparently abandoned his spot in line and was now following me out. I got to my car, and as I was putting my laptop in the back seat, I saw him walking toward me through the parking lot. I quickly got in my car and locked the doors, and I started the engine. The guy came right up to my car and tried to open the passenger door. I honked my horn several times, and he backed away. Then I drove out of there as fast as I could. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw him standing in the parking lot watching me leave. I went straight home and didn't go to any other stores that day. It was one of the scariest experiences I've had while shopping, and now I always try to go with someone else and stay alert to my surroundings. I reported the incident to Best Buy and the police, but I don't know if they ever found the guy. When I was about 10 years old, my family went to my aunt and uncle's house for Thanksgiving. They had a farm with lots of land and animals, which I always loved visiting. That year, after we had dinner, I asked if I could go see the horses in the barn. My parents said yes, but told me not to be gone too long. I walked out to the barn, which was about 100 yards from the house. When I got there, I went inside and saw the horses in their stalls. I was petting one of them when I heard a noise coming from the hayloft above me. It sounded like someone moving around up there. I called out asking if anyone was there, but no one answered. I figured it was probably just a cat or something, but then I heard footsteps walking across the floor above me. Now I was getting scared. I quickly left the barn and started walking back toward the house. But as I was walking, I looked back and saw a man climbing down from the hayloft. I started running as fast as I could. When I got back to the house, I was out of breath and told my parents what happened. My uncle and dad immediately went out to the barn with flashlights. When they got there, the man was gone, but they found evidence that someone had been staying up in the hayloft. There was a sleeping bag, some food wrappers, and other personal items. My uncle called the police, and they came out to investigate. They said it was probably a homeless person who had been using the barn as shelter. They took the items as evidence and said they would patrol the area. That night, we ended up leaving earlier than we had planned because my parents didn't feel comfortable staying there. A few days later, my uncle called and said the police had caught a man matching the description breaking into another barn a few miles away. He had apparently been going from farm to farm looking for places to stay. I'm just glad I left the barn when I did and that nothing worse happened. This happened to me about 3 years ago on Thanksgiving night. I had spent the day with my family, and around 10 at night, I decided to go to Walmart to do some Black Friday shopping. They had open at 6, but I wanted to avoid the initial rush. I figured by 10 it would be less crowded, and I could actually find what I was looking for. When I got there, the parking lot was still pretty full, but not as bad as I expected. I went inside and started shopping. I was looking for some deals on video games and movies. I spent probably about 45 minutes in the store and got several things, and I checked out and left. As I was walking to the parking lot back to my car, I noticed a van parked nearby with its engine running and headlights on. I didn't think much of it first, but as I got closer to my car, the van started slowly moving toward me. I picked up my pace and quickly got to my car. I unlocked it and got inside, but before I could close my door, a man jumped out of the van and ran toward me. I pulled my door shut and locked it just in time. He tried to open my door and was yelling something at me, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. I started my car and backed out quickly, almost hitting him. The man jumped back into the van, and it started following me to the parking lot. I drove toward the front of the store where there were more lights and people. The van was right behind me. I honked my horn repeatedly to try to get someone's attention. Finally, a Walmart employee who was collecting carts outside noticed and started walking over. The van immediately turned and drove off in the other direction. I rolled down my window and told the employee what happened. He said he would call security and asked if I was okay. I said yes. And then I drove straight home. I was shaking the whole way and kept checking my mirrors to make sure the van wasn't following me. When I got home, I called the police and reported what happened. They took down all the information I could give them, including a description of the van and the man. I never heard if they caught him, but I never went shopping alone at night again after that. About 5 years ago, I was working as a cashier at a grocery store the week of Thanksgiving. We were really busy with everyone shopping for their holiday meals. I was working the evening shift on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and the store was packed. There were long lines at every register. Around 7 at night, a man came through my line to check out. He only had a few items and seemed normal enough at first, but as I was scanning his groceries, he started asking me personal questions like what time I got off work, and if I had plans for Thanksgiving. I answered politely, but kept it vague, trying not to give him too much information. After he paid, he stood at the end of my register for a few minutes like he was waiting for something. I asked if he needed anything else, and he said no, but he didn't leave. Finally, my manager noticed him standing there and asked if there was a problem. The man said no and then left the store. I finished my shift around 9 and walked out to my car in the employee parking lot behind the store. It was dark back there and not very well lit. As I was unlocking my car, I heard someone say my name. I turned around and saw the same man from earlier standing about 20 feet away. I asked him what he was doing back there, and he started walking toward me saying he just wanted to talk to me. I got in my car as fast as I could and locked the doors. A man came right up to my window and started knocking on it, telling me to roll it down. I started my car and drove away. He stood there watching me leave. I drove around the front of the store and went back inside to tell my manager what happened. She called the police, and they came to take a report. They said they would have someone patrol the area, but since the man was gone, there wasn't much they could do right then. They told me to be careful and to call him immediately if I saw him again. The next night when I came to work for my shift, my manager told me the man had come back to the store looking for me, but security had escorted him out and told him not to come back. I never saw him again after that, but it definitely made me much more cautious about my surroundings, especially in parking lots. This story takes place when I was 19 years old, and in my second year of college. I had gone home for Thanksgiving break and spent the holiday with my family. The day after Thanksgiving, my friend Rachel called me and asked if I want to go Black Friday shopping with her. I said yes, and we decided to meet at the mall around 8 in the morning. When I got there, Rachel was already waiting for me in the parking lot. We went inside, and the mall was absolutely crazy crowded. We spent about 2 hours shopping and bought quite a few things, and we decided to get some food at the food court. We found a table and sat down to eat. While we were eating our food, I noticed a man sitting alone at a table about 30 feet away from us. What made me notice him was that he wasn't eating anything, and he kept staring at us. I pointed him out to Rachel, and we both agreed it was creepy. We finished eating, and decided to leave the food court. As we got up and walked away, I looked back and saw the man also getting up and starting to follow us. We walked quickly toward the exit of the mall, trying to lose him in the crowd. But every time I looked back, he was still there about 20 feet behind us. We finally made it out to the parking lot and practically ran to Rachel's car. We both got in and locked the doors. Then we saw the man exit the mall and start looking around the parking lot. Rachel started the car and we drove toward the exit. But as we were leaving the parking lot, I saw the man get into a car and start following us. Rachel saw him too, and she started driving faster. We turned onto the main road, and the car stayed behind us for several miles. We were both really scared and didn't know what to do. Finally, Rachel saw a police station and turned into the parking lot. The car that was following us drove past and didn't stop. We waited at the police station for about 30 minutes and then drove back to my house, taking a different route. We never saw that car or that man again. We reported it to the police and gave them descriptions of the man and his car, but I don't think they ever found him. It was definitely the scariest Black Friday shopping experience I've ever had, and now I'm always careful, pay attention to who's around me when I'm out shopping.